I've already kind of let the cat out of the bag, but our next speaker is Jeff Hall. He is the National Employment Director for the more than 1 million member disabled American veterans. He's been in that position since March of 2014. And in that position, he oversees special employment initiatives that the DAV has. He also works with private and public entities to develop and build partnerships to address joblessness and underemployment. He facilitates job fairs, and he also leads efforts to connect veterans and employers together. I did not memorize his resume, so I'm going to need to read it because this man has more experience than I ever hoped for in my life. But he started off as a National Service Officer in 1993. He moved up to be a National Appeals Officer with the Board of Veterans Appeals while at DAV. Then he was the Assistant Supervisor of the Louisville, Kentucky office and was the Supervisor of the Chicago, Illinois DAV National Service Office. And then he was simultaneously promoted to be Supervisor of the New York National Service Office at the DAV and the National Area Supervisor of Area 10. And then finally, he was the Assistant National Legislative Director in 2010, and he was telling me earlier that he testified before Congress. So that's a horrible job. I can't imagine needing to do that. And then he was finally promoted into his current position. And so with that, I will let Jeff take over and discuss jobs and veteran employment.
Well, thank you, Jim, for that kind introduction. I'm Jeff Hall, and I'm the National Employment Director for DAV, Disabled American Veterans, and I work at our national headquarters in Cold Spring, Kentucky. As the National Employment Director for DAV, I have the privilege of our startup with the program back in 2014 to where we are today. And so I'd like to walk you guys through where we were and where we've come along the way in the many aspects that we have with our national employment program. Again, as I mentioned, for me personally, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I was combat wounded during the first Gulf War. I had had my own problems with my own VA claim. So it really interested me that there was a necessary component that, veterans needed to help, where I was under the impression, like many, that a lot of things are just simply automatic. I was truly thankful that DAV had reached out to me in that aspect, helped me through the process. And then I, of course, joined their professional staff in 1993 in Chicago. I'm an Indiana native, so being in the Midwest was where I wanted to be. But it didn't take long after that. I left the Chicago office and worked at our Board of Veterans Appeals office, then worked my way up through the Louisville, Kentucky office back to Chicago. Then I ended up in Manhattan as an area supervisor for DAV. I worked there for several years before I moved on to my next assignment, which was joining our legislative staff in Washington, D.C., working on Capitol Hill with either policymakers at different levels of government, different areas of government, and of course our elected officials, whether we were working on bettering the benefits or the claims process that was so much more problematic at that particular point. So there was a lot of headway has been made. Of course, nothing that I'm sharing with you is problem-free. If it was problem-free, there would be no need for organizations like DAV. And from a historical aspect, Judge Robert Marks, who's a World War I veteran, he was born clear back in 1889 here in Cincinnati, and he was the one after World War I knew that there was a need for care and concern for veterans who were injured traumatically, some so severely that they, with a whole host of different types of disabilities. And Judge Robert Marks was the founding member of the DAV of the World War. So it was DAVWW back in the beginning, and it was founded here in Cincinnati. But we aren't without Michigan roots, because along the way, Mr. Marks had made his way to Detroit and was a successful public servant in way of he was a lawyer. He, obviously became a judge and all of those things in between, but he resided for a great amount of his career there in Detroit. Fought against Henry Ford to a degree because of, auto accidents and things like that he was working on. But later that came around because DAV has been a partner of Ford Motor Company since 1920. We've done so much with Ford Motor Company. They've done so much with us. Whether, primarily in supporting our DAV van transportation program to transport sick and disabled veterans to and from their much needed VA medical appointments, wherein they may not have any opportunity to get or means to get to and from their medical appointments. So we have a long lineage and history with Ford Motor Company, of course, Detroit/Michigan. So it's a pleasure to be here to talk not only about a little bit about DAV in our overall sense, but obviously the programs and services that we provide with our newest program, which is our National Employment Program. We're a very small staff. We're one of the smallest within DAV. There's myself, my Assistant Director, Rob Luigi, our National Employment Specialist, Mary Hunter, and then one that pulls it all together for all of us is Jordan Heck. And we do so many different things that I'm going to take you through into this process of probably not too far and deep, but to give you a really good view of walking in and starting the program from scratch to where we are. As you might surmise, I mean, we represent veterans' interests in the employment sector with all branches of the government, whether it's the DOD, the DOL. We work with Disabled Veteran Outreach Program Specialists, local veteran employment representative, Small Business Administration, of course, the Department of Veterans Affairs, specifically vocational rehabilitation, and a lot of people at the state and local level. We are a national program, but we, as you probably know, we have many, many great volunteers and members of DAV throughout the country. We're about 1 million strong as far as our membership base goes. And so many of these folks out there, we can't do it without our volunteer corps. Again, whether it's in Michigan or whether it's in Ohio or Kentucky or all of the other states and including Puerto Rico, our volunteers make it work, and our employment program would be no exception to being able to provide the services that we do through this program without, certainly our volunteers. To get into it a little bit, we have several different ways that we provide our employment services. And what I like to tell people is kind of when you're setting up a program, it's the pillars that you want to build around. And so while we've come a long way in that regard, the 3 pillars still remain the anchors of the program, and that is how we provide our services. And that is either through direct engagement with veterans and employers, to certainly our online tools and resources, and our career fairs that we bring together and do those across the country. Of course, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more because of how COVID has affected that, but what we've done in reply to that to continue our services. But our main website for the employment, we're the only program within DAV that has a standalone website at jobs.dav.org. So everything I talk to you about here in this presentation, you can find there on our website. And this is something that's constantly evolving, as you guys probably realize how technology and especially the internet or web-based applications work. It just constantly changes. Something new and improved comes out. There's a better way to do it. The appearance isn't working, whatever it is, any variety of those things. What you're seeing on these slides that I have here is probably the 12th iteration of our website, but we're very happy with where we are right now, but we're constantly looking at ways to improve that. This is now, we just rolled out here earlier this year, really around the beginning of the year and pre-COVID, the website that you see now, but we've already made some changes that you'll see. We've added more tools and resources for veterans, and we get about right under 10,000 people that visit us every month, and they are exposed to, whether it's veterans or employers alike. And that is one thing I'd like to say right up front is, when you're working with an organization like DAV and your focus is on the advocacy and the service directly to the veteran or the family member, in this setting this particular program up, the whole thing was, for me, was providing that direct service, helping a veteran secure meaningful employment. And that's the root mission, whether it's the spouse or anybody attached to that individual as a dependent. But we had to look in a broader range when it came to employment. Yeah, that's true. There's about 200,000 people that leave the military every year, give or take. DAV has a transition service officer program where we have those individuals located on military bases. I think we cover about 100 military bases and are involved in the separation process. So being there and being involved, employment has to be right up front, because that is one of the key things that for individuals as they're leaving the military service. Yes, they want to make sure that their finances are in order, but when you ask them in an overwhelming response, those individuals, first and foremost, they want to know what's going to happen with their livelihood. They're leaving a career, they're going into a new career. And so employment assistance has to be right there, right up front. And our transition service officers certainly make them aware of what DAV has to offer. Even if it's particularly guiding them to our website so that they can see these tools and resources. Our job board that has, it's actually increased from where I have the figures here on this slide, which is pretty recent. But we have around 200,000 active opportunities on the website. How individuals search for those job opportunities on the website is pretty simple. Type in the keyword of what job or career path you're looking for and what location. And what we always tell people is certainly to be creative with what you're putting in there. If you want to put in there supply chain, the only way you're going to find supply chains in that, supply chain jobs in that, is if the company that's putting the job posting in there uses that phrase supply chain. The supply chain can be tied up as logistics or any host of those things. So what we encourage people to do is certainly just be creative when using the job board, and you can apply directly for those jobs from there. We have other things here, specific links to companies that we work directly with, such as Herc Rentals, Cintas, Fiserv, and a host of other ones, Ford Motor Company, and so on and so forth, that we want to guide people to those. And when you click on any one of those, it'll take you to whatever that company has. Could be a military affinity page where it tells people, I want to come to work for you. What do you do for military veterans? Or do you even recognize them? Or is it just you kind of come in anonymous? Some people want to be anonymous, and we understand that. We encourage them not to be, because there are so many advantages of letting a company know that you're a veteran, that you're a disabled veteran. Companies benefit greatly from things like work opportunity tax credit and other tax incentives for hiring disabled veterans. So we've come a long way in that particular category. But there's a lot of road in front of us, and hopefully our online tools and resources that include videos, and we have in progress a resume writing. We have tips on there right now, but we're putting the finishing touches on being able to provide a no-cost certified resume writing opportunity for veterans, where we would, when we roll that program out, hopefully before the end of this year, when we get everything worked out, veterans would be able to come to this website, find a resume. You need a resume, and you click on it. It's going to connect you directly. You're going to have to fill out some information. It's going to first verify if you're a veteran through ID.me or something similar. And then when you get plugged in, you're going to be plugged into a certified resume writer that can write your resume, whether it be in the traditional career path or if you're looking for federal employment, which is a much different type resume. So that's going to be forthcoming. And as I mentioned, one of the most underrated things I personally encountered was when you're providing service and you're used to providing service directly to the veteran, I never really accounted for the employer in this situation. When in fact, what I learned very quickly, within the first few months and really within the first year, kind of looking back on that road, was simply how much interaction was taking place with companies that were reaching out to us, companies that, we were working with. But we had to have an employer section, on our website so that employers that were coming to us would also find valuable information. One of those things we started out right away with was doing a lot of research and coming out with our publication, the DAV Guide to Hiring and Retaining Veterans with Disabilities. And why that came about was it really was born out of so many questions from so many companies that were coming to us, asking the simple or elementary question. We want to hire veterans. We want to hire more veterans. We want to hire veterans with disabilities, but that's a slippery slope and we just don't know where to begin. From something like that to, even more and then, into the weeds with things like, we want to hire veterans. We certainly value them. We're patriotic. We recognize their services, but when we look at their military paperwork and if we see anything where they have combat, they're probably somebody that has post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's just an area that, frankly, we're fearful of, that we don't want to have a workplace incident. So I share that with you simply to probably something many of you already know, if not all. And that is, PTSD is not a military-related disability. Many companies, and that's usually how I replied to companies, was how many employees do you have that aren't veterans that have post-traumatic stress disorder? And of course they couldn't answer that. And you simply tell them, you would be shocked to know that you have more people who didn't serve in the military that have post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's just something that's been stigmatized throughout the years through the different media outlets and whatnot. And so we wanted to have a guide that helped, a practical solutions guide that would offer some very elementary to a little bit more deep in the weeds type information for companies that were struggling with that particular challenge of hiring and retaining veterans with disabilities. So that guide is available on our employers section, as well as some other tools and things like that they can use. We want to recognize companies for their outstanding support of veterans in way of recruiting, hiring, retaining veterans, recognizing their veteran employees. And there's so many great companies out there that do a fantastic job with it that they need to be recognized. And there, again, the list goes on, but we have an outstanding employer of the year where we recognize a small, mid-sized, and large employer of the year every year. We like to bring them to or invite them to come to our convention, our national convention, and accept their award on stage. It's something to let them know that in the arena of veterans with disabilities, DAV is the powerhouse and the leader as the voice of disabled veterans. And so to be recognized as someone that we recognize as a huge, supporter of disabled veterans and their families is really something they should look at. We've made that a little bit easier process. I have a couple slides that talk about it. It was a paper application process, and we worked pretty hard here at the end of 19 to do an online submission form. So a company, an employee of a company, it doesn't have to be the top person in the company. It can be anybody. It can be somebody in the community that just simply recognizes this company is outstanding for what they do for veterans. They always support the Veterans Day Parade or Memorial Day activities, any number of things. So anybody can do this. Anybody can go online, click on this employer recognition tab, and it'll take you to an online submission form that simply you fill it out. There's a couple of things we ask you to upload and attach And at the end, when you click submit, it comes right into our employment inbox, i.e. me, as well as my team, and we review all of those. We make the selection once a year. We're kind of looking at maybe doing it more often. But that's some things coming down the road. But this is live. This is out there. So if you or someone you know, a company you know is worthy, or you feel they're worthy, we certainly invite you to submit a nomination for Outstanding Employer of the Year. Again, as I mentioned, the hiring guide, it is a practical solutions guide. It's there. It can be, the PDF is available. It can easily be downloaded. If you'd like to request hard copies, all you have to do, and my contact information will be at the end of this presentation, simply shoot us an email and let us know if you'd like some hard copies, and we'll be happy to send those out. Our job fair section under that tab, as you might surmise, is our full job fair schedule. I have a separate section of this presentation that talks about where we are with our job fairs, but when you click on it, it takes you, that tab, it will take you to this section, and the ongoing schedule scrolls. It's automatic. So once the event happens, it comes off of there. We actually have 2 events today. And when those are done, it automatically slides up. There's some slider there to the right. It's stationary on this slide as fixed on our partner, Recruit Military, who handles the logistics of all of the career fairs. They're a great partner. We've started this program with them. Meaning when we rolled out our employment program, they were there as a partner, because one of those tools that we wanted to have were certainly our career fairs. And they, after I went to several different types, they were the industry leader, in my opinion, of the quality of the amount and quality of the exhibitors that were there, but also the number and the variety of different levels of candidates that were coming through the door, whether you were, enlistment, you got out as an E4, or you were, an 06 or higher. It doesn't matter. There's something for everybody at the career fairs, and we do a lot of them. The full schedule can be found by simply clicking on the green tab at the bottom of that. That we update regularly. All of them are hyperlinked, so when you click on it, whether it's on the page here or on the schedule, when you click on it, it will take you automatically to the registration page, and individuals can it's very easy to register at that particular point. Speaking of our job fairs, we've had to do a huge pivot, as a lot of companies had to do a pivot in many ways, due to the COVID-19 virus. I'm going to talk about that, but since 2014, as I mentioned, our partnership with Recruit Military has been going strong. Again, they are the leading, organization as far as in our opinion, the quality of events that they produce. For us, we were engaged with doing 125 physical job fairs per year. You saw our staff at the beginning. There's really only 2 of us that is traveling, myself and Rob. We do rely on some of our local people, whether it be national service officers or department service officers, or even transition service officers, if it's a base type event that makes sense that they're there. So we cover 125 events, pure and simple. And then we also do 15 virtual events with Recruit Military as well. Again, a lot of those things changed this year in a huge way. Especially for us, when we were used to traveling every week, Rob and I, every week, traveling someplace by plane to go to, whether it was Miami or Seattle or San Diego or Boston, or, those are the 4 corners, kind of all points in between. Our biggest job fairs are physical job fairs are places like Dallas, Atlanta, Houston. Those events are extremely large. One of our toughest markets for career fairs is California, with the exception of San Diego. It's very tough. We do a couple times a year. We're in Detroit. And of course, this year we had to pivot because of the COVID-19. I think we had 15 job fairs that we had attended, and roughly 8 or so that we had not attended, for about 23 events that we had in the book when Recruit Military sat down with us and they were like, hey, we got to start moving some of these because venues started canceling due to the virus and restrictions. And of course, we learned a lot along the way. It was a slow process to pivot and convert job fairs from physical to a virtual event. But Recruit Military did an outstanding job in doing that. Obviously, everyone wanted to try to avoid, canceling everything for the year, but that's eventually where it led. In this particular case, I don't like to use the word cancel because we had an alternative, and that alternative was online or virtual career fairs. So with Recruit Military, it was a pivot to going from a face-to-face job fair to a virtual event. And we've done certainly a number of those. We have a whole host of those left on the books for the year. We do them city-specific. We did combination job fairs where we were doing standalone events in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Detroit. And we did a combination job fair virtually that was for veterans who reside in really this huge area of Detroit, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. So one event for all of those combined. It made better sense to do that in certain locations. Dallas is a standalone event. Then we also have base-specific events like Joint Base Lewis McChord, Camp Pendleton, certainly Fort Bragg, Fort Hood, any number of them. We do quite a few of those. But our biggest ones are attendance-wise, both from companies and veterans alike, are our regional events. And so those are denoted as, when you click on it, it'll say Eastern Region or Mid-Atlantic or Central Region, so on and so forth. And then we also do those that are much larger, a nationwide event. Some companies love that because they just have that kind of a footprint where they want to recruit for all corners of the United States. And so those benefit those companies perhaps in a greater way. Those, we get about 100 employers, or about 80 right now, 80 companies that come to the nationwide event as an example. And the last two we did, one was about just shy of 1,700 veterans that attended, and the other one was a little higher with 1,988 that had attended. It's a huge audience for companies. They love it. And the main thing through this whole process of pivoting was unemployment was centric to the COVID-19 situation. We all obviously saw the unemployment rate at an all-time low prior to the COVID-19, and all of a sudden it shot dramatically up. But it is the good news is it's coming down, and it's kind of been steadily coming down. New jobs are being added. Jobs are being added every month. Whether veterans pick up those jobs or not, we look at it as it's still a great news when there's that kind of forward momentum. But in the process of that, DAV recognized the fact that there were going to be a lot of veterans, specifically disabled veterans, that were losing their employment, either being furloughed or maybe the company was closing and did that early on, any number of things. But if we set up the DAV COVID unemployment relief package where veterans could contact DAV, an online application. They simply fill it out if they are a service disabled veteran, and they can supply DAV with something from the VA that says that. And they can also give us something, either an email or a letter from their employer that they've been laid off or furloughed from their employment due to the COVID-19. They could apply for the one-time grant. That's been going. It's still going. People can still pick up the COVID-19 unemployment relief program information on our main website at dav.org, and it can still be applied for there. So if you're a veteran that is just now learning of it, or someone that you know that you think would benefit from that information, have them go to dav.org and they can learn more and certainly apply for those grants. But again, unemployment was being, employment and unemployment were central and have been central to the COVID-19 situation. And so again, having resources and tools available out there is sort of one of those situations, a double-edged situation where, we could have all the great tools and resources, but if no one was hiring, it's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it, though, in the realistic way, and we still have to work to get that message out, because we're still within the situation, even though some companies have, regained some footing. We're not out of this by any means, and so DAV wants to continue with that message to veterans that companies are still hiring. They have been hiring through the process. Where to go? Okay, if you're used to going to a career fair, a face-to-face career fair, and that stops, we have the virtual ones that work essentially the exact same way. You connect and talk to a company live. They like to do live interview. They like to do interviews on the spot. They like to do video interviews. We do get questions from people that say, if I come to a video job fair, and I'm like, it's not a video job fair, it's a virtual job fair. So when they come in, they register, they click on it the day of the job fair. It opens up and it gives them a list of companies to visit. They simply click on the company, say DAV. They want to visit our booth. They enter our booth in a public chat forum. All said and done, it's interaction back and forth. There's a lot of private conversations that we have. We have the capability of doing video interviews with people. So companies do that as well. So dress for success, even though, it's a video or it's an online or virtual career fair, because you never know. But that's the message we wanted veterans to know and understand, was that companies are still hiring. It's just a different method that they're going through right now. And so all those changes we all have to make. This is no exception to that, but we do a lot of them. Our full schedule, again, is available at jobs.dav.org, and we're continuing forward with that. We're all over social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, certainly Instagram. We promote our career fairs in a host of ways. Twitter even, there's just a lot of them. I just have this slide here. There were some folks that had asked for the actual website. This presentation, I think, will be made available if you should happen to need that. So where have we come from since June when we rolled out the program? You can see here by the numbers, we've hosted almost 670 job fairs, nearly 230,000 attendees. And the real kicker is that over 150,000 job offers have been extended to individuals. So it's definitely been a great venture for DAV to be there, to be able, and I'm very, very proud that we're involved with this particular thing, because there's nothing better than helping a veteran transitioning out of the military to the next career step, whatever it may be. We have a lot of things on the road ahead, things I mentioned here. The resume project is one of those things. We're going to really involved in the entrepreneurship space in a big way. And again, here's the contact information. I really, really appreciate what you guys do, having me, being able to share some of this information. But if you have any kind of questions, you can reach out to me here at employment@dav.org. And again, my name is Jeff Hall, and I'm the National Employment Director for DAV, Disabled American Veterans, and the best of luck to you.